listening to the Project Management Podcast. We bring project management topics to beginners and experts. Find us on the web at pmpodcast.blogspot.com or send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com. Hello and welcome to the 5th show. I am Cornelius Fichtner. This show was recorded on the 30th of September 2005, and today I will give you my review of 5 project management related podcast shows out there. However, before we do that, I want to read a few emails that I have received over the past couple of weeks. The first one is from Chuck Tomasi. He writes, "Hello, I found your podcast on the front page of iTunes. Being a new project manager for our IT group, I thought I would look for any and all resources. Since I am familiar with podcasts, I do a couple of shows myself and find the medium terribly convenient, I thought I would start with your show. I am just getting through the existing material now." Well, thank you very much, Chuck, for telling me about the iTunes front page. I was quite happy to see my show announced there. And please keep listening, because I will use the questions which you have asked at the remainder of your email in my interview that I will be doing next week with the chair of the local PMI chapter. Next is an email from Jennifer Kelly. She writes, "Great show. I tuned in shortly after you started your podcast, and as someone who is considering project management as a career switch, your shows have been very helpful. Keep up the great show." Well, thank you very much, Jennifer. And also thank you to Andrew Smith from Auckland, New Zealand, who writes, "Hi Cornelius. Just listened to your intro podcast. You did well and captured my interest. I wait with interest for your next shows." Finally, I got an email from Daniel Parazzoli. He writes from Brazil, and that is in response to my show on project failure. I think that was show number 3. He writes, "I was listening to your 3rd show about project failure at lunch. And oddly enough, early that day, the key project which I was working on was declared a failure, first by me, then my superiors." He continues to explain how he deals with failure. This is going to be interesting for you folks here. "First, I blame myself. I keep looking back and seeing the all so obvious signs that things were going wrong. Then I blame the others. What do I have staff for? Are they so obtuse that they couldn't see what was going on? Do they care so little about anything else than their paychecks? After this, I blame my superiors for a while, thinking that they could be more supportive. This lasts for a day or two. After that, I start thinking where the relations between the people involved in the project started going bad." He finishes by saying, "Personally, I blame a failure of a project on my lack of ability to manage people and make them get involved." And I very much agree with Daniel here, because the P in PM stands just as much for people management as it stands for project management. Oddly enough, those stages that Daniel went through, they reminded me quite a bit of the 5 stages of grief. You know, the 5 stages that someone who receives devastating news has to go through before they can accept that news. And those 5 are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. It's kind of the same kind of feeling here. Daniel also asks if it is wise to almost immediately try and revive a failed project. Now, from what I can tell, Daniel's project failed because the software vendor pulled the plug. Personally, I have to say no. You probably want to give the project some rest to regroup. And most importantly, however, you need to bring everyone involved to the table and do a lessons learned. Because before you revive a project, you definitely want to know why it failed and what you can do better next time. Otherwise, you'll just repeat the same mistakes. And I can tell you this is exactly what happened to me. There was no lessons learned done, and that is why the project that I was talking about in show number 3, why it had failed. And in order to get that lessons learned, you want to bring everybody on the project onto the table and listen to what they have to say, definitely. Oh, and you probably also want to surf over to the Troubled Projects Specific Interest Group. Yes, folks, there is such a thing. You can find them at www.tpsig.org. There will be a link on my blog for that. But now, on to today's show, in which I will be giving you my review of 5 other shows that I have found out there. And these 5 shows are The Internet Show with Tony Fraser, The Fox Show by Andrew McNeil. Then there is the Business Intelligent Network Solution Spotlight with Claudia Imhoff, The Marketing Edge with host Albert Maruggi, and then there is the wonderfully named The Cranky Middle Manager Show, which is hosted by Wayne Turmel. Please keep in mind that these podcasts, they are regularly scheduled shows, but they don't always talk about project management in each of these podcasts. Just the shows that I'm reviewing here today do talk about project management. Let's get started.
It's the Internet Show with Tony Fraser! Yay! I love this thing. I love the show. I love being in the air. I love having my own radio show. Absolutely fantastic.
The Internet Show with Tony Fraser is a podcast of a radio show from Radio KLAV 1230 AM in Las Vegas. Here's what Tony says about his mission. There's a lot of bad business and technical information about the web floating around, causing people to lose zillions of dollars a year in wasted capital and human confusion. We hate that. Our mission is to stare straight in the face of all those topics that seem like rocket science, break them down, and protect you from having the wool pulled over your eyes. So he's focusing mostly on internet issues, and in this show here, he talks about project management. This show was recorded on March 9th, 2005, and it is 54 minutes long, including all the radio ads. Tony's guest is Marcus Pemmer. And Tony says about Marcus, in addition to being a startup expert and striking it big with some really interesting statistical software, Marcus happens to be the one single guy I'd trust to run a monster project if I needed it to go off without a hitch. Learn how to successfully manage a technology project from the best of the best. And in the first 20 minutes of the show, they start out by talking about the basics of project management. Then Marcus goes into a very, very good overview of project management methodologies and best practices. There are lots and lots of golden nuggets of wisdom in here, even if you are already a project management expert. 2 statements from Marcus here that I disagree with. First of all, he says that companies in the US don't require certification, while companies in Europe do. My opinion is that US companies, in fact, are requiring certification. Job ads no longer say that PMP is preferred. Instead, they say PMP required. And his second statement, that was a bit odd. He mentioned that, in his opinion, Microsoft Project is the most mature project software out there. He doesn't really qualify it much more than that, so I disagree with the statement the way it just stands right there. And I would have to hear Marcus speak more on that topic to understand exactly why he said this. As you're listening to the show, you will also notice the stark difference between the project management know-how of the host, Tony Fraser, and his guest, Marcus Pemmer. Marcus really shines, while Tony seems to be fighting for words during the whole show. My verdict of this show? Skip the first 5 minutes. Then settle down and enjoy a really interesting show with the musings of Marcus Pemmer. This is a good show for every project manager.
Hey everybody, this is Andrew McNeil. I'll be your host for the next little bit as we talk about Visual Fox Pro, the database industry, blogs, RSS, pretty much anything else I want to get off my chest about the business world that we live in. So just sit back and enjoy the ride.
Welcome to the Fox Show.
The Fox Show. It is hosted by Andrew McNeil. Here's what Andrew has to say about his show. Fox Pro news, interviews, and more about database design, software development, and business. Hosted by Andrew McNeil, of course. The episodes that we're looking at today is the Fox Show number 4, recorded on Friday, 8th April 2005. It is 30 minutes long. Andrew is a very entertaining host. Andrew is Canadian, and he talks in a wonderfully off-the-cuff way about the topics on his show. In this, his Fox Show number 4, he focuses on project management. Of course, he focuses on project management in a Fox Pro environment, but his musings, nevertheless, are applicable in other software development environments as well. And in case you don't know, and I didn't before listening to the show, Fox Pro is a Microsoft toolset which enables you to create 32-bit database applications. From what I can tell, Andrew is a self-employed software developer, and during his contracts, he not only develops the software, but he is also the technical project manager. So he manages the project, and he also manages the people on his teams. The show is very entertaining. He gets up during the recordings, he walks over to his bookshelf to pick up a book that he just remembered and wants to talk about. And at one point he even sneezes right into the microphone. So it's quite entertaining. It's very just spontaneously done, the whole thing. My verdict of the show? It's a very entertaining and brief look at project management in a Fox Pro environment. You only need to listen to about the first 15 minutes of the show when it comes to project management, because after that he wanders off into Fox Pro land and he kind of lost me there. Fox Pro show number 4 is recommended if you want to hear about project management from a practitioner out in the field.
You're tuned into the Business Intelligence Network,
your source for business intelligence,
data warehousing, business performance management, and information quality news and commentary.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the BI Network's Solution Spotlight.
The Business Intelligence Network's Solutions Spotlight. Here's what they have to say about themselves. The Business Intelligence Network delivers industry-based content hosted by domain experts and industry leaders. The Business Intelligence Network includes horizontal technology coverage from the most respected thought leaders in business intelligence, business performance management, data warehousing, and data quality. The Business Intelligence Networks serve these communities with unparalleled industry coverage and resources. And if you follow my link, you will see what they mean. They really have a lot of good business information out there. The show that I like to review today didn't have a date on it, and it is approximately 20 minutes long. In this program, the host, Claudia Imhoff, is speaking with Michael Ma, who is the managing partner of QSM Associates, and they are discussing the need for utilizing effective negotiation techniques for software project management that provides the ability to measure and estimate software product in days, not weeks. What that means is they're talking about estimating IT software projects. And this show is, of course, for all those among you who have to estimate the cost on projects. From what I understand out of this show, QSM Associates has a tool which contains a database in which they have over 7,000 projects, and this tool supposedly allows you to estimate your projects with up to 90% of accuracy. And again, of course, we're talking IT projects estimating here, and the tool is also best suited for that. Nevertheless, the basic concept that Michael Marr talks about in the show are applicable in other industries as well. Just how do you properly estimate a project? The sound quality is quite good on the show if you consider that both speakers are using a phone. My verdict: if you are currently looking for an IT project estimating tool, or if you just want to listen to a few concepts of how good, solid IT project estimation is done, give this episode a shot.
The Marketing Focus interview section today features Bridget Hayes, Vice President of Marketing and Strategic Alliances for Team Direction. Team Direction is a project collaboration and tracking tool that operates on
the marketing edge. They say about themselves, short, crisp, insightful ideas on marketing, processes, and societal change. From brand creation to lead generation, public relations to podcasting, all with a twist of humor and dollop of common sense. Hosted by a former television anchor and press secretary of the Republican National Committee, Albert Maruggi. The show that I'm talking about here is recorded on June 12th, 2005, and it is 12 minutes long. The title of the show is Remote Marketing Project Tracking with Team Direction. And this show is an interview with Bridget Hayes, who is the Vice President of Marketing and Strategic Alliances for Team Direction. Team Direction is a project collaboration tool which runs on the Mac OS Groove platform. The tool is about 3 to 4 years old. And of course, the show is mostly a review of this tool and how it can be implemented for project management in a marketing environment. An interesting statement in the show was when the host mentioned that the Gantt chart in this tool is a really, really wonderful tool to work with. To a project manager, it seems to me that a Gantt chart is probably the most basic tool there is, but if you keep listening and you actually believe what Bridget has to say here, then their Gantt chart in this Team Direction tool is much, much easier to use than what MS Project offers, and there is no learning curve to it. I have to see it to believe it. My verdict of the show? This interview seemed very faked and stiff. The sound quality of the interviewee is almost painful. You can hardly understand what Bridget has to say at some point. You can hear background noises like phones going off and other people talking, and it even seems that the host was working on his computer and reading his emails while he was doing his recording. So this podcast will really only interest you if you are in marketing and are currently in need of a tool that helps you manage your projects. Otherwise, don't bother.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome to yet another edition of the Cranky Middle Manager Show, the podcast dedicated to middle managers, those who love them, those who tolerate them, and those who are one. Now, I'm told that this show...
The Cranky Middle Manager Show. It's hosted by Wayne Turmel, and if I understood this right, then the show is an extension of Wayne's work around the topic of cranky middle managers. He writes articles and books about it, and he is also available as a keynote speaker. He has many shows out there already, and the one that I'm reviewing here today is the one from the 18th of August 2005, and it is 35 minutes long. The show is titled Project Management with Dave Poe Chedley. In 35 minutes, they talk about a lot of topics. Certification, the PMI, the PMBOK, competencies a project manager needs, or the need for executive support. There is really a lot of good stuff here in this interview. Sometimes it's a bit basic, but everybody will find a few golden nuggets in this interview right here. Wayne is a very entertaining and engaging host, and Dave is really doing a fine job in working with him on this interview. He does a fine job, Wayne does a fine job with this interview, even though project management is not his expertise. Cranky middle management is. My overall verdict of this show is I've heard Dave Porchedley speak live on 2 occasions, and I've really enjoyed him speak. And he's also doing a really excellent job with this interview right here. This show is mandatory listening for all you junior project managers out there, and it's also an entertaining review of all those things that you senior project managers should already know. To sum it all up, here is my ranking of these 5 shows, from first to last, in regards of project management content and what you can learn by listening to these 5 shows. At the very top, number 1 is the Cranky Middle Manager Show, simply because it's entertaining and full of wisdom. Second is the Internet Show with Tony Fraser. It contains an enormous amount of good wisdom, but it's only coming in second because of the host. Third is the Fox Show, because it has great tips in there from the field, from a very entertaining practitioner. Fourth, the Business Intelligence Network Solutions Spotlight. This one came in second to last because it still has some practical value. And last, and number 5 on my list here, is the Marketing Edge, simply because this show is very badly done. That's about it for today. Thank you very much for listening. In my next show, you will hear an interview with Christine Hayes-Munson, who is the president of the Orange County chapter of the PMI. As always, you can find us on the web at pmpodcast.blogspot.com or send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com. And when you write, please tell me from where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this. The words you never want to hear when you are joining in the middle of a project are, "Glad to have you on the team. If you happen to meet our leader, could you please get us his name?" With that, keep listening to what your customer has to say. Until next time.